All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises and glory and honor that's due to Yahweh, Ba'Shem Yahushai, Ba'Shem Rakakwadash. Double honors being to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone. Blessings and salutations into the hopeful elect. Noise in this gospel abroad, lifting up the standard of Yahweh, Ba'Shem Yahushai, wherever it may be. This is just a quick, not a lesson through the spirit and power of Yahweh, Ba'Shem Yahushai. Spirit compelled me to kind of browsing through the articles, and I came across this, which was not really my intending on doing a lesson on this particular topic, because I seen some Christians was breaking down wrong about the new covenant and the old covenant, and I wanted to attack that. But Lord's will, I may get into that lesson tomorrow if the Spirit compels it, because that seems to be more thorough and thought out lesson here. And this one is pretty much straightforward, though it's very diverse in nature, because the scriptures going into World War III and the war in heaven. But it's ironic that you got the Space Force that's deploying down to the Middle East, which that's a spirit, because we know that the Third World War is going to initially be fought in the Middle East. All right, according to the book of Joel, the 2nd chapter. Also, the book of the 2nd Esdras, I believe, 13, when it goes into when Yahushai came back as the chariot came in, was big. Ezra seen it as a mountain, because that's how huge it was. And we understand that these scriptures is be true. All right, so it says here, hold on one second, this thing is stuck. So it says U.S. Space Force began its first mission in the Middle East. That's spiritual. I mean, that right there tells you that World War III is really, we're really in it, because like, why is Space Force touching down in the Middle East when that whole planet is supposed to be outer space, or in the heavens, so to speak? Well, that's the Spirit of the Lord stirring things up, because that's really America trying to flex on these other nations and say, well, look, we got a Space Force, which is nothing but an extension of the Air Force, if you really think about it. All right, because Air Force, I mean, they deal with air commodity too, but hey, these are the prophecies coming to pass. So it says the 20 troops embarking on the mission are unlikely to be over the moon, but instead they are heading to the Arabian Peninsula. All right, and Saudi Arabia, all right, the land of Syria, Iran, these different regions over there in the Middle East. This is where those nations are gathering together to fight this Third World War, and why COVID is just nothing but a mere distraction and a ploy for the economic collapse to bring in an RFID chip. Everything is on alignment with what's happening according to the scriptures, because that's the spirit. Someone asked me this question last week. They was like, well, is the World War III and a chip going to be simultaneously? And pretty much these things are going to happen like a domino effect. They're going to happen in a particular sequence, because we believe during the time of the economic collapse really was going to escalate the war, and by the time the economic collapse, the chip would be instituted. So you can say that these things are all happening pretty much on the same spectrum, though, because hey, the Lord is moving quick. He's bringing his judgments fast, like the scriptures say, behold, I come quickly and my reward is with me. And the Lord is getting ready to reward Esau, man. All that he's put out in the earth, all the negativity he's put out, the Lord is getting ready to double it upon him. So it says here, the squadron of 20 core space operators, it says here, has been stationed at the Udeid Air Base in Qatar in the unit's first foreign deployment. It says their new mission is to confront new threats from the region from Iran's missile program. All right, so basically, America, they put sanctions on Iran ever since they agreed to drop out of the nuclear program, or the nuclear arms race. They didn't do the deal with them, or something to that magnitude. They refused America's proposal, so America has been putting sanctions on them. So therefore, they're trying to intimidate these other nations into complying with them by putting sanctions on them, and ultimately threaten militarily. But America is trying to work around things strategically, because ultimately they're trying to avoid a confrontation with the bear, which is Russia. All right, which the spirit is going to lead it that way, regardless on what you do, But it says here, just as well as attempts to jam and hack and blind satellites. It says a team will run satellites, track enemy maneuvers, and try to avert conflicts in space. But it says, although it has been the butt of several jokes since it was announced, even a subject of Netflix comedy, the unit is set to cost more than $15 billion in 2021, and it will have 16,000 personnel. All right, so they show you a huge chunk of your tax dollars, really not all, but a huge chunk and all the money that's being printed is going to the military. I remember when Trump got in office, he was talking about a $1.3 trillion bill. What I believe half that going to the military, and I believe half of it was used to get this space force up and running, because he relatively came up with this one quick. You know, he was talking about this a couple of years ago, and look, it's already solidified. You know, which shows you that we're that much closer to the end of this man's kingdom. All right, so this is a good thing. It says here, Colonel Todd Benson, director of Space Force troops at UAE, said, "We're starting to see other nations that are extremely aggressive into preparing to extend conflict into space." And really, it's the chariots, you know. But this is all prophecy, Revelation 12, man. Okay, matter of fact, we got to get that. But it says we have to be able to compete and defend and protect all of our national interests. It says the missions are not new and the people are not necessarily new, but the decision to deploy to the Arabian Peninsula first could be seen as a nod to the country's first space war and the first Gulf War in 1990 and 91, which was triggered by Iraq's invasion of Kuwait. All right, so you got to think of it this way too, like the scriptures go into the land that's barren and desolate, you know, going into the land of Saudi Arabia, you know, going into the Northern Sea or the East Sea. I believe the East Sea, if I'm not mistaken. I believe it's not the Red Sea. I think it may be the Mediterranean. Don't quote me on that, but it's on the tip of my tongue. But nonetheless, the scriptures say he won't bring you back from the land that's desolate. And that's really going over there to where they're going to fight this war in the Middle East, barren and desolate, because, you know, let's just say if you went and deployed to Afghanistan or Iraq, or not even Iraq, you go to Saudi Arabia, it ain't nothing but a damn peninsula out there, man. Okay, you can't see anything. They have no landmarks. You know, they have no particular streets and nothing like that. There's no highways. I mean, everything look the same, so it's easy to get lost. And that's another downfall for the Americans, because for one thing, you don't know the terrain like that. That's why they can pick you off so easy, because you don't know the landmass. And this is why you send your CIA, you know, your CIA agents or the British Secret Intelligence Service, you send them over there to scope out the land and give you blueprints on how these things operate so you can get the up and advantage. But overall, the Lord is dismantling your power structure, you know? So it says here, that was the first conflict in which the U.S. military used the GPS coordinates, it says, to tell troops where they were in the desert as they pushed towards Saddam Hussein's army out of their neighbor's territory, all right? And they had to use that intelligence because, like I said, they didn't know the land as much. And that's one thing. If you don't know the map, you get gunned down, man. I mean, it's simple. Like if you brothers play Call of Duty and shit, you know how people are able to kill you easily when you respawn, even though it's just a video game? It's because they understand the map. Same thing with paintballing. You can go paintballing with people that's not skilled, but if they know the map and they know the ins and outs of the arena, they can pick you off because you don't know where they're going to come from. That's why they say the best tactic in combat is the element of surprise. All right, so actually, technically, I mean, hitting a guy with his back turned is really not off. I mean, the element of surprise, the scriptures use it. You know what I'm saying? There's no such thing as a fair fight when it's in the streets. So, yeah, I mean, times you might have to run up and hit somebody. I mean, the element of surprise always works. Esau does it all the time. He's mastering. You know, the best hit is the hit you don't see coming. You know, but anyway, it says here, the U.S. has accused Iran of interfering with military communications, but tensions between Washington and Tehran have been growing throughout Mr. Trump's time in the White House, including his withdrawal of the U.S. from the Iran nuclear treaty (INT) and the U.S. drone strike that assassinated a leading Iranian general in January. So it's already tensions from that. But this is World War III drums beating, man, you know. And on top of that, that war in outer space, because Yahweh Shai is going to intervene right in the midst of this madness, man, you know. But it says Iran responded publicly by launching a ballistic missile at American soldiers in Iraq. But the spring, Iran's Revolutionary Guard launched its first satellite into space, revealing what experts describe as a secret military space program. And they showed you that on that movie, Moonraker, the James Bond movie, man. It's called Moonraker. It came out in the 70s. You should watch it. You know, they expose a lot of gems in those movies, man. You know. But it says here, but Washington has imposed sanctions on Iran's space agency, accusing it of developing ballistic missiles under the cover of civilian program to set satellites into orbit. But how you gonna put freaking sanctions on people when you're doing the same damn thing? Like, your time of leading a free world, as they call it, this is not your world, Esau. I mean, yeah, you're in rulership over it, but ultimately you don't have any right over the land. You don't have a right to tell people what they can't do when you are doing it. Well, you can't beat up your citizens, but yet you could detain your citizens for running red lights or just for being quote unquote black. You devils are a bunch of damn hypocrites, man. You know? And it says, but U.S. officials insist the new deployment is aimed at securing U.S. interests, not setting off an extraterrestrial arms race. But Mr. Benson said the U.S. military will likely see a peaceful space, but other folks' behavior is kind of driving us to this point. But the force has been widely marked as a vanity project for the U.S. President Donald Trump for having a logo similar to the one used in Star Trek TV movie franchise, and it went into the whole Netflix company, blase. But you know what? The reality of it is though as they taking it as a joke, this is the prophecy that the Bible has been speaking about for so long, man. All right, that war in heaven, Revelation 12 and 12, because the war in heaven, World War III, and the War of Armageddon is all happening simultaneously. It's all going down at the same time, man. All right, that's why the scriptures say he shall roar his voice from Mount Zion, roughly paraphrasing it. Because when the Lord comes back with those chariots, it's going to be hell to pay for you nations, man. And you Edomites, first and foremost. But you other nations, you're going to get it too, because, hey, you all had a hand in taking down the children of Israel, according to Joel, the 2nd chapter, Psalms 83rd chapter. Your brothers can read that if you want to, sharpen your sword up and get understanding on who the Lord is going to do this to and for what and why. All right, so this is Revelation 12, and matter of fact, this is Revelation 12. Give me 1 second here. All right, so anyway, this is the book of Revelation 12, and I'm going to start at verse 7. It says, and there was a war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought against his angel. All right, Michael is the angel, top angel under Yahweh Shai, the one that tells you about the day in the 12th chapter there's going to be the protection unto the hopeful elect. All right, it says Michael and his angels is going into the other chariots, the other angels, because you got to understand it is a ranking system in the heavens, man, just like it is on earth. You got ranking systems among men, and also you got an order of angels in the heavens, with the top 4 angels being Michael, Uriel, Gabriel, and Raphael, the 4 archangels that leads the Lord's armies. But it says, and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought against his angels and prevailed not. All right, neither was there any place found anymore in heaven. So that war is talking about literally in the war, what you say in outer space. All right, slightly outside or above or in the earth's atmosphere, but in outer space, in the heavens. It's not talking about in the 4th dimension, the spiritual realm. This is a literal war that you're going to be able to look up and see and fight. Those of you that go over there to the Middle East. And on top of that, the chariot that Yahweh Shai is coming back in, you're going to see it. So you're going to see all types of cosmetic activity that's going on in the air due to this war. It says, and prevailed not, neither was there any place found any more from heaven. And the great serpent was cast out. That serpent, the devil, called the devil and Satan. This is talking about Esau. It says, which deceiveth the whole world. And he was casted out to the earth, and his angels were casted out with him. All right, and meaning that his military, his space force, his air force, and all the other world's armies that conjoin together to team up against Yahweh Shai, man. All right, so that's what this article is really going into. All right, so my next precept, I'm going to go from here to the book of Joel, the 2nd chapter, starting at verses, because this is what is going into World War III. So this is the book of World War, not World War III, the book of Joel, the 3rd chapter, and let's start at verses 9. It says, proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, prepare war, wake up the mighty men, that all the men of war draw near, let them come up. From the Russians, the Persians, which is the Iranians, the Libyans, the British, the Americans, the French, the Portuguese, all these other nations, they're going to fight this 3rd World War, the Arabians. All right, it says here, let them come up and beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears, and let the weak say, I am strong. Iran is popping shit to America now. Oh, you attacked our general leader, then hey, we finna shoot missiles at your force in Iraq. They popping back, they clapping back now, because ultimately this whore, she's losing her clout. All right, she's losing her clientele. People are leaving her. They don't want to pay for the box no more. It's wore out. And I say that hypothetically because America is known as the great whore, you know. And it says here, assemble yourselves and come, all ye heathen, and gather yourselves together round about. Thither cause thy mighty ones to come down, O Yahweh, and let the heathen be wakened and come up to the valley of Jehoshaphat. That's down in here in this Arabian Peninsula, or what they call the land of what the Strait of Hormuz, or down in that land of Israel, in that particular region, that Middle Eastern region. All right, that's where the Third World War is going to be fighting, that region now. It says here, for where I will sit here to judge all the heathen round about. So put ye in a sickle, for the harvest is ripe, and come get you down, for the press is full, and the fats overflow, and their wickedness is great. But multitudes and multitudes in the valley of decision. For the day of the Lord is near in the valley of decision. All right, and this is where he's going to decide to judge all these other nations, ultimately putting an end to the rulership of the so-called white man. All right, and it says, and the sun and moon should be darkened, and the stars shall withdraw their shining. And the Lord also shall roar out of Zion. How he's going to do that? With those chariots, because the scriptures say that he's going to descend with the shout of an archangel. So when these chariots come at Yahweh Shai, man, it's going to literally shake the earth. And it says, and utter his voice from Jerusalem, and the heavens and the earth shall shake. So you're going to know when Yahweh Shai get back on this planet, man. I mean, like, he's going to make his appearance known. And that's how we going to know and say, yep, big bro back. You know, it's going to be cold, man. I can't wait. But it says, but the Lord will be the hope of his people. It says, and the strength of the children of Israel. All right. So, brothers, man, we got hope, you know, and that's what this thing is about. Hope. Hoping for things you can't see. That's the whole epitome of faith there. Hoping for the Lord to deliver us and wake us and get us out of this hell. You know, because, hey, I want to get on them ships, man. I'm not trying to sit here and get ICBM nuclear missile or get disintegrated by the lasers, because the scriptures say, who should not utterly be beaten into powder at the Lord's presence. You know? All right, so this is the book of 2nd Esdras 13:1. It says, and it came to pass, after 7 days I dreamed a dream by night, and lo, that arose a wind from the sea, and that it moved all the ways thereof. And I beheld, and lo, that man waxed strong with the thousands of heaven. And when he turned his countenance to look, all things trembled that were seen under him. So this is the reason why Trump came up with the concept of the Space Force, because they know the chariots been showing themselves. And like I said, I brought out an article like 3 or 4 years ago when they was talking about a fleet of resurgence of chariots coming into the earth that next following year. And I believe since 2018, that's when the increase of so-called UFOs have been sighted more than any other time on the earth. All right, and I brought out that article, I'm going to say roughly mid 2016 or summer of 2017, and a year later they said, they picked it up on radar. They said, look, we have a presence that's from beyond this world. And I say in the article, Esau said, look, that resurgence will be here within a year's time. And hey, guess what? Them chariots popped up. Now look at them, they all over the place, which chariots always been around, but they've been detecting this resurgence or this power from a different realm. Why? Because Esau has been dealing with CERN, which operates with extracting particular spirits or getting particular exponents from the spiritual world or from a different dimension, because CERN deals with operating on the God particle, which deals with extracting different deities and beings out of these different realms, man. That's why he's trying to extract spirits from the spirit realm. That's why things are even more demonic, you know, trying to tamper with the fabric of existence known as the God particle. Because if he figured out the God particle, somewhere in his twisted, demented little mind, he feels that he can go back in time and add more time to his kingdom, but it ain't gonna work that way, man. You know how like on the movies, how they got in different realms, time functions differently, and they got time machines that they can go back in time and start over. That's what Esau is doing, is trying to figure out how to add more time to his rulership, because his time is running out. But you can't outsmart the Most High, man. That show you how much of a demon he really is, because he really think the Lord is going to allow him to go back in time and to hit the reset button on your society. You crazy. All right, so you would never manage to get to what they call a parallel universe or a multiverse, if that shit even exists. Not the way you're talking about it. You know, they got this whole multiverse theory that it's 1,000 copies of you somewhere in the universe. That don't make sense. The scriptures never specified that. Now, while I do believe in other realms and other parallel earths and universes, look, man, you're one spirit, you're one being. If the Most High got other beings out there, hey, we'll know in due time. But right now, man, we're focusing on earth, because the kingdom is going to be set up on the earth. Then it's going to extend to the rest of the galaxies. But what Esau is doing, he's doing too much. You know? And it says here, And it says here, and whensoever the voice went out of the mouth, they all burned that heard his voice, like as the earth felleth when they filleth the fire, them laser beams. Beam me up, Scotty. It says, and after this I beheld, and lo, there was gathered together a multitude of men out of the number, from the four winds of the heaven, to subdue the man that came out of the sea. Now this is in that peninsula region that I just told you about, the ones we was reading about in the article. This is in the Middle East. All right, because we understand, we just read in Joel, the 3rd chapter, that the Lord shall roar from Zion, and when he comes back, the earth is going to shake. So this is in the Middle East. That's why it says from the four winds of heaven to subdue the men, because you had the world's army that came from the United States, Britain, France, the Arabians, the Russians, the Persians. All those particular nations are going to band together to try to stop this perceivable threat, which is the Lord, but they're going to fail miserably, And it says here, to subdue the man that came out of the sea, but beheld, and lo, he graved himself a great mountain and flew upon it. And I would have seen the region or place whereof the hill was graven, and I cannot. That's how big it was. And on top of that, this wasn't from the earth. All right, this was from the spiritual realm. This is the reason why he couldn't pick up the particular substance. Like, damn, where the hell you get this thing from? I've never seen this on the earth before, because this is from a different realm. And on top of that, it was just that big, And it says, and after this I beheld, and lo, all they which were gathered together to subdue him were sore afraid, yet does fight. They was afraid of the sight, because this chariot was so big, to the point their worst nightmares came to pass. Because looking at a Steven Spielberg movie, World of Worlds, which was I think his name was J.J. Abrams, if I'm not mistaken. He come up with the concept of the World of Worlds, and that's what Esau's afraid of. He's afraid of losing his kingdom to what he perceived to be aliens, but he know they exist, which they're not aliens. They're considered the angels, but they will be alien because they're not from this earth. All right, just like if I go to China, I would be considered an alien to that country, because that's not my native land. But it says here, but yet does fight. And lo, as he saw the violence of the multitude that came, he lifted neither up his hand nor his sword, nor any instrument of war, but only I saw that he sent out of his mouth as had been a blast of fire, out of his lips a flaming breath, and out of his tongue he casted out sparks and tempests. And they all were mixed together, the blast of fire, the flaming breath, and the great tempest, and fell with violence upon the multitude which was preferred to fight, and burned them up every one, so that of a sudden of an innumerable multitude, that's how many armies that it was, it seems to be an infinite number of people. That's how cracking this war finna get, man. It says nothing was to be perceived, but only dust and a smell of smoke. And when I saw this, I was sore afraid. All right. So another good precept you brothers could read too is Wisdom of Solomon, the 5th chapter on down. That goes into the Lord is coming back, giving us the spiritual power, and also the war in heaven and the chariots. It gives a good account of that too. But anyway, I want to give all praises and glory and honor that's due to Yahweh Shemi Shai. Double honors to the elders, the apostles of great millstone, and blessings and salutations into the hopeful elect. And with that, shalom and a ball.